Name this quote. Good works gathered in 1,000 ages, such as deeds of generosity or offerings to the blissful ones, a single flash of anger shatters them. There is no wickedness similar to hatred, nor is there an austerity to be compared with patience or fortitude. Steep yourself, therefore, in fortitude in all ways, urgently, with zeal. Shantideva, got it. That's the Padmankara translation. I like that verse that way. So I've been thinking a lot about anger in the last little while and puzzling over its many permutations and justifications. I've been taking a course, sort of a justice-oriented online course lately, and I'm again reminded how much anger is seen as a virtue in the realm of social justice work. And boy, it's seductive, that thing about, to get righteously angry. I want you to get angry because we need action on this cause. And of course, we can talk about definitions and terms. From the Buddhist point of view, when we talk about anger, we're really talking about the mind that is projecting or exaggerating the negative qualities of that phenomenon that has crossed our path and wants to destroy our happiness in some way. That's our projection, and have the wish to either harm it or get away in some way. That's a pretty clear point of view. So, in some ways, I would say what I see as people's wish for social action is not anger, but is actually a fierce compassion. But that's not the point of my talk today. Because what I want to look at today is my own anger, which is not fierce compassion. Let me tell you, anger is just anger. It arises unbidden. And I remember the first time I heard this quote, I can't remember who was teaching it, but I know that at one point, we were receiving teachings here with Geshe Sopa, with Geshe Sopa, and he said this, and we really had a discussion. Is it literally true? One flash of anger decimates eons of merit. Come on. Really true? Is that really true? I asked this question of a Geshe when I was studying in Dharamsala a couple of years ago. And I got an interesting perspective on it because I said, here's my example. When I was young, I was a very angry person. You might say I still am, but I was worse. When I was young, I was a very angry person, and yet I still had the merit to be able to meet the Dharma, to come to the teachings, and then to be able to ordain and live in the conditions where I can really practice. How do I rationalize that in relationship to this quote? The answer was, you are thinking one life. That is a very narrow way of thinking. We have eons of negative karma, and we have eons of merit. So it's not just about this one. It's kind of an invisible phenomenon to say that a flash of anger destroys eons of merit. But the more I meditate on this, and the more I come to have confidence in the validity of the teachings in all the forms that they come in, the more I'm coming to think, you know what? It's true. A flash of anger and then the actions done as a result of that anger really destroys merit that I have worked hard to create. And I think it's kind of embarrassing to say this at this point in my practice, but to actually internalize that gives a much deeper, richer motivation to try to transform this affliction as it arises in the mind. Because we've worked hard. We work hard here. We know that we work hard. I know that somebody who was in this continuum of this consciousness worked really hard to get where I am today. Nothing I've done in this life brought this about. I may be perpetuating it now, but nothing made those causes arise that I can think of. So I don't want to destroy that. In addition to not wanting to harm anybody else with my anger, I don't want to destroy my own merit because now I'm quite intent on my goals. I'm quite intent on trying to get a succession of precious human rebirths until full awakening. And anger and acting out of that anger simply, gets in the way of that path. So one of the antidotes that's really quite helpful for me, one of the things I looked at is like, okay, when somebody is angry at you, do you get angry back? Just because they're angry at you? Does anybody do that? Yeah, I do that. Like, why? It's defensive, but like, what's the point? Somebody's angry at me, so what? Why does that generate anger, an angry response? Habit. Or, they're not approving of me. They're not approving of me. They're not thinking I'm wonderful. They think, in fact, I'm terrible and they want to harm me, right? That's the defensive response. So that right there is something I just want to bring to our attention because it's for me, looking at all the reasons I get angry, this to me is the stupidest. Somebody is angry at me, and so I feel like I need to defend myself against that anger. It doesn't make any sense. And one of the antidotes that I find especially effective if I really meditate on it is looking at this one that Lama Tsongkhapa in Lama Rinpoche, he outlines it really, really clearly. It is about anger being inappropriate because the person does not have control. Now, think, just in your own life. When you have lost it, you've said what you didn't think but afterwards shouldn't have been said, or done something you shouldn't have done, then anger was arising. Did you have control in that moment? I think if we could have control at that moment, we would not have done what we were later regretting, right? So I know how it feels to have no control over the affliction arising in my mind. What makes me think that the person who is seemingly harming me has control over their mind? That their action is deliberate? That they looked at me and said, Tupten Chuni, I am going to get angry at you because I want to harm you specifically, and I am in control of that mind that's having that thought. Why do I think that? But I do. And that justifies my anger. Oh, they're angry with me, I can get angry back. Of course, now I'm out of control. Now we have two people completely out of control, right? The situation gets worse from there. So is it acceptable to be angry if the harmer lacks control? That's the point of that J. Rinpoche gives us. So the analogies they use is like take someone who's really, really ill or really sick, who may strike out at their caregivers. Caregivers know that that person has no control, right? They don't get angry with that person. Some parents are capable, not all of them, some parents are capable of recognizing when their child's anger is out of control. That they need to contain that child, but they don't need to get angry in return. Geshe Gelsen gave this example too, of sometimes when, I think this is a Gaia example, but it's an interesting one. Sometimes when people are drunk, people will say, it's just the liquor talking, don't pay any attention to him. And they blow it off, right? They know that that person is out of control. So I've seen that mind come up before. So just as Aryadeva says, just as a doctor does not fight but helps patients who are possessed by spirits, though they get angry, so the sage sees the afflictions are at fault, not the person who has the afflictions. You get what that's saying? It's saying the anger is the problem here. not the person in whom the anger is arising. And we know, if we think about it, as they say again and again, nobody gets up and says, today I'm going to be super angry. I love that. No. Anger arises due to all kinds of conditions coming together. It is a conditioned phenomenon, and it arises unbidden in the minds of people as a result of, coming up against an object that triggers it or whatever. But it's all causes and conditions coming together, and the person overwhelmed by anger is not in control. So, this particular quote from Engaging in the Bodhisattva's Deeds, I've done BBCs on it many times before, but I continue to use it as a real antidote to my own thinking. I just want to share this again. Thus, everything is dependent on something else. And because that in turn is dependent, it is not autonomous. Understanding this, do not be angry at anything. Anything. All things being like an illusion. Therefore, if you see an enemy or a friend doing what is wrong, think, this arises from certain conditions, and remain happy. If all beings could achieve results according to their wish, then since no one wants suffering, no one would suffer. Get what that means? Anger is not arising because people want to be happy with it. People want to be happy, and anger brings suffering. If they were in control, they wouldn't let it come. It doesn't make them happy. While under the control of their affliction, some people will kill even their dear selves. So how can we expect them not to harm the bodies or the sensitive little egos of others? Therefore, I'm just going to cut straight to His Holiness's quote. If you can cultivate the right attitude, your enemies are your best spiritual teachers, because their presence provides you with the opportunity to enhance and develop tolerance, patience, and understanding. So, as we are at the end of a long season where people are tired and ready for a little bit of a break, and people are a little bit edgy and kind of feeling tender and, angry, we can really practice our own fortitude and look at our own response to other people's anger and hold them in a space that's like a doctor who doesn't respond when the patient gets out of control. I'm working on it. I'm not saying we can do it and we can do it today. But it is an antidote, I think, that really contributes tremendously to community harmony. If, just because somebody else is angry, we can look at this as being a phenomenon that is rising due to causes and conditions, that person is not in control, and I don't have to respond in turn. So I offer this as both my pledge to the community, that I'll be working on this, and offer it as a practice that we can do together and support each other in holding that space. Recognizing that when the afflictions are in control, man, that's who's in control. And trusting that we're here to cultivate the antidotes, and that we're all at different levels with that. At any given moment, we're at different levels of that. Different levels of capacity at any given moment. And give each other the space to hold each other in loving kindness.